Good evening and welcome to another edition of SoCalSportsReport.com's podcast. It's Vince Morales in the captain's chair, filling in for John Stellman and along with John Adams. How you doing, John?
Good.
And we've got plenty to talk about. The NBA All-Star Game had, in the new iteration with the teams selected by captains. We'll talk about that. The lid came off of free agency.
Yeah.
And we'll talk a little bit about that. Also, something that we hadn't talked about, but I would like to talk about tonight, John, is the Major League Baseball pace of game rules changes. We'll talk a little bit about that. Have an update on the Angels and the Dodgers reporting to camp. Little NHL talk. Maybe talk some Pac-12 basketball and a recap of the Genesis Open, the Los Angeles Open. Yeah. A surprise, a little bit of a surprise, but maybe not. So we'll get John's reaction to that, and we'll get started. But reminding you to go to SoCalSportsReport.com, the website, click on the Be Part of the Show icon on that homepage, and you can leave a voice message about what you'd like to talk about and be part of the show. So we'll get started now talking about the NBA All-Star Game. A close match this time, not 400 points scored, only about 300 this year. What did you think of the difference between, I know John Stellman was telling us that he's a traditionalist. He likes the old East-West setup.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of All-Star games as a whole. I actually don't mind the MLB All-Star game because it's not like you can play street ball or, right. In hockey, you don't, the hockey all-star game, you don't touch anybody and right. You can't hit anybody. And so, it's very slow paced. And, so it started out that kind of street ball I'm like, I don't know if I like this too much. And guys were bouncing balls over guys' heads and, just throwing up threes left and right. And
didn't they shoot something like 120?
Yeah, 123 3-pointers, and they did. I think they made like 5% of them. It was really bad that way. But then, as the game got more into the middle of the second half, it started to get a little bit because Steph's team made a little run, and they were up by 10 or 12, and then here comes LeBron's team. And then it got really competitive at the very end, and it turned out to be what everybody called a good decision. Again, going back to it, I'm not a big fan of the All-Star game in a whole. I mean, even the introductions, I thought Kevin Hart's kind of introduction of the team guys was kind of fun, but prior to that it was ugly, and
like the Fergie national anthem.
Well, the
ugly?
Fergie national, I should have bet the over on that. I don't know if I had it, but I mean that was was that Marilyn Monroe trying to sing to the president or something like that? It was just, I don't know. So going all the way kooky up to the game, it was just kind of little like, boy, I could really turn this channel really fast, right?
A lot of people probably did after
and then I didn't like the idea of Jimmy Butler going and saying, oh, you know what, my body needs rest. I don't need to play. Well, then you could have probably got a Lou Williams or somebody from L.A. to fill that spot,
absolutely.
And maybe try to find an all-star between the Clippers and the Lakers to fill that role. And so I thought that was a little Bush League by him, but overall, it was a good finish to kind of help the start. This is the best way.
I think one of the knocks against the NBA All-Star Game was that there just was never enough defense. There was a lot of contested shots. Right. It looked like they were playing D. They were getting serious. I actually loved the idea of the picking teams and just shaking it up. I loved the 3-on-3 in the NHL All-Star. I thought that was a new development and something that will continue and really spice the game up. I think this spiced the game up, and I think the biggest complaint coming in was, well, why didn't we get to see the draft? And I think now the NBA understands that, wow, that's another way to market this and promote this, and watch them pick it. And
I'm against that, to be honest with you, because now you're going to tell some guy that he's an all-star.
Well, you were the last one picked.
Exactly, and now you kind of go, well, you're the worst all-star of it all.
I love that idea.
No, well, see, I just don't. I wouldn't want to be that guy, you know what I mean? And like, I busted my butt to make this team, and now I'm going to be the last guy. So, I don't know. I'm kind of against that. So, just because of that reason, because I wouldn't like to be like, yeah, hi, I'm Jimmy Butler. I'm your worst guy on the team, and just let me play whenever I can. I don't know. But again,
it'll
get a lot of viewership.
Right.
It'll be good for the NBA.
Right.
They'll love that, so
it's the kind of drama that is contrived in a lot of these reality programs, right? It's trying let's put them in a tense situation, I sort of like that it's sort of this genuine drama, and there might be hurt feelings, and there might be guys going, "Oh, F you, man.
Yeah.
F you, LeBron. What do you think?
Yeah.
Not picking me."
Yeah, and it'll be really good and funny if he was on his own team.
Exactly.
So
exactly. So I thought the game was probably a lot better. The ratings were down just a little bit over last year. I think the LA always knows how to throw a party. Staples Center and LA Live. What a great place to have all of those events. And the unfortunate thing is that just like you're saying, no Lakers, no Clippers, nobody other than in the the prospect game or whatever the up and coming.
And if you would have had it in New York, you wouldn't have had anybody from Brooklyn or anybody from the Knicks either.
True.
So, but I think keeping it in a major city, and I don't know how they do this where you build a new arena, you get a new state. I don't know how that's all going to go, but I think it's important to keep it in a major city like the Chicago's, New York's, LA's. Those, I think that San Francisco's. I think that's going to be I don't think they're probably going to bring it to Golden State probably till that new arena is built in downtown San Francisco. But I think, just because of what goes around that, I was up there on Wednesday, I think it was, and that LA Live, it was just being built, but what they were building was pretty spectacular. So,
yeah, it's always a big party when the NBA is involved. So I thought it was a good game. A lot of people still want it to be a little bit more competitive, but it came down to last possession.
Yeah,
and so, I thought that it's definitely a success, and I think more people will watch. And now that they see what the whole picking sides and what the captains is all about, and I like that. I like that a lot.
So one of the things that was brought up, I think the day after, and I don't know what your side of this is having the best teams meet in the finals. And there was a discussion on possibly taking the playoffs and throwing it into almost like an NCAA bracket. So where, let's just say the Lakers and the Golden State are the two best teams in the league or in the NBA, they would go on different sides to possibly meet for the finals. Are you up for that? Now, a big thing for that is travel, right? So, Portland is, Portland is now playing Miami in the first round. You know what I mean? So back and forth. I think the only possible way to do that is if it's is it 2-2-1? Is it, I don't know what you do in the first go around. I don't know how that all goes.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. And I know that those are the types of things, reseeding and having the best play the best. But the way that it's structured, divisionally, I don't mind it for an exhibition game, where they kind of throw out the East and the West. For me, that's fine. Throw out the rules in the NHL. It's a 3-on-3, which is, the overtime rules. I'm fine with that. I think just generally speaking, I can't imagine. The thing that I ask myself is, can I imagine them doing that in baseball? And if my reaction is, oh my God, you would never do that to baseball. Right. I don't want to see it other places. So I don't like sort of this reseeding or seeding like that. So I'd be opposed to that, and I don't think it's going to happen. Because what happens is that ratings are sort of dictated by the coasts, right? You've got the anchors and LA, New York, and sort of in between. And if you can get teams that are playing each other, that's why a Dallas, Chicago sort of thing isn't ideal, because then you start to lose the LA and the West Coast market, and you tend to lose the East Coast market. They like things that are a little bit, either the Midwest and the East, the Midwest and the West.
Well, and it goes down to, what if Portland upsets a Boston in the first round type of deal, right? Now you're not going to get that, Golden State versus Boston or, that East versus West, which I think that's what we've grown to accept, with the, Lakers and the Celtics and all that kind of stuff, and the rivalries and the 76ers and,
Fundamentally, that's where I'm at with it, is that there's you eliminate these rivalries from the get-go. West Coast like that, it's one thing if it's the Lakers in Boston, right? That's been established, but it would be a lot different if it were, Phoenix, not that they're going to make the playoffs, but if it were a Phoenix and Boston, to me, in an early round game, that would be terrible.
Yeah, getting back to the All-Star game, I thought it was really cool that they played for $350,000 for the winner, and that went to a charity of LeBron's choice, and then he picked something in downtown LA.
Right.
And then the same thing for the losing team got $150,000, and that went to Steph's charity. And it sounded like it was one of these things that all the players were in for. So
right,
nice
and the other thing that was nice is
people benefit from it.
They expand the community part of it. Of course, LeBron has several foundations across the country and a lot of things in his own backyard, but it was for a foundation that was in the LA community. Yeah. Same with Curry. So it was designed that way to keep that money within the community. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, good idea.
So the NBA All-Star Game now, the NBA coming in, the Lakers and Clippers trying to get off the deck a little bit, and we'll see what happens. And I guess we can talk about that next week because they're not playing yet, and we got a lot of other stuff to talk about. And as I was saying before, the lid came off free agency with the Eric Hosmer signing by the San Diego Padres and the J.D. Martinez signing by the Boston Red Sox. Right. Again, I'm looking at that Hosmer deal, 8 years. And again, it's sort of a misnomer because it's an 8-year deal worth $144 million, but because of the opt-out after the 2022 season, it's more like a 5-year, $105 million deal. But the J.D. Martinez, it's more like that J.D. Martinez 5-year, $110. Right. So collective bargaining agreement is up in 2021. So I think a lot of the foresight is there. So that 8 years. And it's front loaded. So the Padres, so it's about an average of $20 million for the first 5 years, and then $13 million for those years where Hosmer might be tailing off. I'm wondering what you think about it seems like a lot of money to me for Eric Hosmer.
It's a lot of money for a small. Well, I would assume San Diego is a small, team now to spend that kind of money. Just prior to coming on the podcast here, I mentioned to you that I went to the San Diego roster on the computer, and I didn't know I knew two players. I knew Austin Hedges because he made a little stir last year, and I knew Will Myers, right, who's, the journeyman now, was their main guy. Now he's not, and I'm assuming, talking to you, they're going to move him to right field, but, you've just spent a lot of money for a guy to help you at first base, but what do you have around him to try to make this a contender? And is Eric Hosmer now just going to chase the money? I mean, is that like you're telling me that he might have not gotten some a little bit smaller and been at more of a contending, in a contending team? So I mean,
I'm not sure where the market was for Eric Hosmer. Right. So if it was between Kansas City and San Diego, I think the writing was on the wall that Kansas City was dumping, and that the Padres probably weren't there yet. If he was buying that, he got sold a bill of goods because I think the Padres, look, Las Vegas doesn't believe it. Las Vegas still has him at the over-under of 73 wins.
Right.
The Hosmer deal didn't move the needle.
Fluctuate it.
Right. And a lot of that is because you're putting a first baseman Myers in the outfield. He's played the outfield, but he's just not very good. And so defensively, you start to,
and that's a big outfield out there too.
Absolutely.
It's a big outfield. And do you have the pitching to keep yourself in ball games to where the Hosmers can drive and the Will Myers can drive these guys in the run, in to win? And I guess time will tell. It's not like we're scouts, right? So there must be something in there to where, hey, look at these kids just needed a couple years to flourish. But again, Austin Hedges is the only one that I know that's actually come out of that young crowd. I think the shortstops.
Manny Margot, and
you would know more because you're more of a National League guy than I am. So
and Hunter Renfroe, who's come, who he was a first round pick for them. So that's what the outfield looks like. I was listening to a Padres coach on the radio coming in saying that there's going to be a battle at third, there's going to be a battle at second, there's going to be a battle at one of the corner outfield positions, and it's like, why would you do that to Renfroe? I mean, you want to keep him hungry, I guess. But the outfield to me is, Margot in center, Myers in right, and Renfroe in left. Yeah. That's how it's got to be if they're going to compete. Petco's the toughest power hitting park for lefties in the National League. And, Hosmer's a lefty who has never hit more than 25 home runs. He's done that twice, back-to-back seasons. But the advanced power stats and the advanced defensive statistics indicate that Hosmer's sort of a middle-of-the-pack first baseman, that even though he's got 4 Gold Gloves, that it's sort of a mirage. It's going to be hard to repeat that 4.1 wins above replacement that he had last year. But his WAR in 2016 was negative 0.1. So he's not adding a lot of games. So he's somewhere in between that. But the Padres seem to think that he's on the ascent and not on the descent. And at 28 years old, you'd have to agree with them. But he's 54% ground ball rate. Mm-hmm. Which is, I didn't realize it was that high. I knew he wasn't a big power hitter, that he'll hit mistakes and but he's not going to pound 30 mistakes at Petco.
No, he's more, he'll drive it into the alleys, but you got to set the table for him to drive it in. And again, that's something you have to work on. And now I guess Will Myers goes to the 3 spot and he goes to the 4 spot, but he will hit, 4 average too a little bit, and drive balls into alleys. But again, who's he driving in?
Right.
And is there pitching going to keep him in? So I don't know. I think he chased the money because I don't think anybody else was interested. And I know the Angels weren't going to kind of spend that kind of money, and they needed a first baseman because they just let C.J. Crone go. So, but we'll get to them later. But
I think the Royals would have been in, but probably not at 8 years. And I think he just sort of saw the writing on the wall. I don't know what he sees or what sort of bill of goods they sold him in San Diego that they were gonna try and move people, or they've got a pretty good minor league system, and so they might be packaging some kids to get competitive right away. And I think. You better be with that kind of.
Well, and it's not bad to get $20 million a year to live in San Diego.
No,
so there's another positive.
No. But also he has to understand. Well, wait a minute, I'm 25% of the payroll is me.
Yeah,
and if you throw in Myers, it's him and Myers.
Yeah, it's now like 50%. Yeah, I don't
Myers came around last year. He hit 30 home runs.
He's always been a great hitter.
He's been very good.
But you're hiding him at first base, and now you're exposing him in the outfield. I mean, because unless it's a DH situation when you're in the American League, and you can put him at DH and put the younger outfielder in right field, but. I don't know.
I'm not crying for the Padres, but no. I look at some of those people who put out the advanced stats and look at Eric Hosmer and say, that's just not, that deal wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
Lefty bat in a place where lefty bats just don't excel at Petco, and in the Western Division with a lot of good left-handed pitching.
Yeah, and exactly, that's a great point. But I think these guys like Hosmer and J.D. Martinez, I think the number was really big. I mean, J.D. Martinez, they were wanting $200 million for, right?
Originally.
And now they're like, these owners are like, no, you can just sit there and wait. And I think they're trying to get them now for value. And, are these guys value at $20 to $22 million a year?
I think if Hosmer can repeat what he's done over the last couple of years, 90 RBIs, 25 home runs, boy, I don't know if he's going to hit 300, but he could hit 300 again. It doesn't, he had the 380 on base percentage, and that's more like a lifetime or a career, 340 on base percentage. His weighted on base percentage is probably right around 380. And I guess the Padres think that they can just build around that, but they're going to need better pitching.
But yeah, I mean, he had guys in front of him, behind him, to where they had to pitch to him. They're not going to have to do that. Maybe in front of him with Will Myers, but other than that, I don't know really who's behind him to say, oh yeah, we'll put you on base and go after the 5, 6, 7 guys.
Right.
So,
I'm looking at the Padres. Yeah, right around 71 wins is where Las Vegas has them and hasn't moved them since the Hosmer deal on that over and under. So I don't think they go down, but I think Hosmer is going to have a tough time getting adjusted.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, but
time will tell.
Yeah, we'll see. I think the Padres feel differently, but time will tell on a big lefty stick at Petco, the big Petco. So Boston gets J.D. Martinez, and now that American League East looks like two big bullies over there.
Right, exactly. Exactly, it is. Like I said, they were looking at, they're looking at $200 million for this guy. I had a feeling that it was going to be one of the big boys that were going to go after J.D. Martinez with that kind of a deal. And I think it's got a lot of incentives in the back end of it, to, getting to a World Series, a certain amount of home runs, the list goes on. That's going to have to possibly take that $120 million, $110 million contract to more like 120 to 150 to where he can make what he kind of maybe wanted. But again, you have that with the killer bees in the outfield. Now you have him that's going to kind of feed into the outfield and more DH. He's not a very good outfielder.
He's terrible.
But from his numbers from Detroit to Arizona were just exceptional. And if there's a team that can set the table for you to drive guys in. And it's getting a short porch and right down the line. So I think he's going to be very successful. I think it was a great call by Boston to do that. And now you have the Judge and Stanton deal down in New York versus, and that's exactly what baseball wants. They want Yankee Boston Red Sox rivalries. And,
right.
So that was a great pickup by Boston. So
yeah, but you look at the rest of the East, and you sort of the Orioles. My God! But still, they've got they got a big bat in their lineup. The Blue Jays have a big bat in their lineup. So Tampa Bay is, I guess, the odd one out, but not going to be. I think it's going to be all Boston and New York, but we'll see.
Yeah, and I hate to say this, but that's exactly what they want. You know what I mean?
Of course,
all about ratings, right, and TV. And again, it's going to be. I think the Yankees are going to have a hell of a year, so I think it's going to be a battle for first place. In fact, I think it's either going to be Yankees or Boston that possibly will get that wild card spot. Because I really don't see anybody making other big moves like that to help out. Especially
who's left, right? I mean,
exactly.
Who's left?
Yeah,
that's it. So Arrieta's the last big piece that's out there, and somebody's going to bite the bullet, and it's probably going to be $100 million.
And the other one I didn't see actually. I was looking at where did is it Matuzak or the third baseman for Kansas City, Makakis? Is it Makakis?
No. No, I know who you're talking about. But
he hasn't. Is he still with Kansas City?
He's still.
Okay, gotcha. But Martinez, I mean, it's like he's 303, 376, 690, a career high slugging percentage. He's a good OPS. I mean, overall, it's a solid. And if you can keep him healthy, which is keeping him in the DH spot, I think. I mean, they're going to be really strong. So.
Yeah, he was a difference maker for Arizona.
No doubt.
That trade, what a great pickup for them.
Yeah, it was a great pickup. Yeah.
If not for just an absolute magnificent stretch of games that the Dodgers had, we would have been, the story would have been Arizona.
Yeah. I agree.
93 wins for that team. It just wasn't good enough in that division with the Dodgers who were 9 games ahead of them. So. The Angels sign Chris Young as fourth outfielder, and they also get Chris Carter.
Yeah. Journeyman, especially with Chris Young, he's a journeyman. It's 6 teams in 15 years. I was looking at, guys that are open on the open market, actually, and to be honest with you, there's nobody out there for the price that they wanted to spend. There's no outfielders out there to go after and get, other than guys that they could probably offer AAA contracts to go in and try to make the ball club. But I don't mind it. It is what it is, but I'm still possibly hoping that there's somebody that's coming from double or triple A to kind of fight for that spot.
Yeah, we've talked about that before. That cupboard is bare. I mean, it
really is bare.
There may be, but I don't think it's happening this year.
No, and that's what you're saying is maybe somebody gets hot, and comes up and pulls off that Wally Joyner type of feel where he comes up from the minor. But again, we've depleted our minor league system so bad that I don't think there is somebody down there that can help him other than, hey, Chris Young, let's get ourselves to the All-Star game, and somebody from double triple A works their way up into maybe somebody goes down or whatever, becomes a name for themselves. But Carter, he's got a lot of power. Another guy that's played on 6 or 7 team, I think 4 or 5 teams. And 2012 to 2016 was his best times. He had 147 home runs in that time, but he also had 834 strikeouts. So
he won't be in the double plays.
But that's, again, he's got great power, but there's a downfall to it. But again, when you get rid of C.J. Cron for a player to be named later, you need somebody, because Valbuena hit 200, and he's really small over there. Carter can actually play first base a little bit to help Pujols out. But, again, wait and see. We'll see how it goes. So.
The thing for me that if I were a diehard Angel fan is the proposed 6-man rotation and some of these pieces off of the bench, is that sustainable over the year, over sustainable quality over the course of a season to get you back into playoff contention against, a team like the Astros, who
and the Astros even got better, right?
Got better.
So that, I think in that division there, you're trying to become that wild card team, because if the Astros stay healthy, they're locked and loaded, right? So, but again, after that, the West, I haven't looked into Seattle too much, but other than Cleveland and Boston and New York, that's who you're going to be battling, that Boston, New York, for that wild card spot or a couple wild card spots. But I think they've actually. I'm going to wait and see with the whole 6-man rotation. If this 6-man rotation turns out to be what they'd like it to be, it wouldn't surprise me if you get a lot of other teams that start to jump on board with this whole thing. So, again, and I'm going to wait and see for Ohtani. The more I hear about things on the news and radio is he's a pitcher. He's not a hitter, right? So that's another wait and see situation there too, because as that means if he's a hitter and he's doing a great job, now this Carter guy's sitting on the bench and more of a pinch hit role because you're going to have to play Albert first base. He has lost some weight. I think he's lost like 20 pounds. He's not gotten Matt Kemp on us, but he has lightened his weight a little bit to hopefully help.
I think that's a positive sign, because something had to change.
Right. No doubt.
And that much weight on those knees and that lower body.
Yeah.
He needed to do something,
right. And he needs to continue to go down. He doesn't just because you're starting playing, you add the weight again. I think he needs to continue to keep losing weight. He probably lose another 20 pounds, you know what I mean, to keep himself on the healthier side. But
those are the types of things, the Pujols and the Kemp. It's like, it's encouraging signs physically how they're coming into camp, but are they going to get a lot of at bats during spring training? Because last year, like for instance, Adrian Gonzalez, he barely had any at bats, and he was in the World Baseball Classic.
And I heard the Dodgers are going to really cut back on their veterans too.
And that's what Roberts has said from day one when voluntary, it was voluntary reporting day. He came out and he said right away, he says, it was a long haul and we're not going to expose our veterans to that much. And I think we saw a little bit of that already. Adrian Gonzalez should not have been in the World Baseball Classic last year. It was just devastating to his health, and Corey Seager is still rebounding from some of those elbow issues, and they're going to minimize him during the spring as well.
And I saw that the Angels are going to lower their fence 10 feet.
Oh, really?
In right field from 18 feet to 8 feet. And so I don't know if that's because they just seen Ohtani hit a BP or whatever.
Wow.
And he just hits line drives, but that actually will help Cole Calhoun a little bit too.
Wow, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, it came out today. Yeah, they're gonna lower it down 10 feet to 8 feet. So a lot of these line drives now are gonna. So it's almost somewhat of a short porch and right. So. That's a new thing that just happened today too.
It's a double-edged sword because lefty bats coming in also.
And then with the sign of Chris Carter, we've actually got the Pedro Serrano lookalike playing first base for us also.
A little Joe Boo bobblehead.
Yeah, he starts scraping the bat with all his
chicken
tricks.
bones.
Yeah, right, exactly.
That's great. So staying on Major League Baseball, so the commissioner and the Players Association have agreed to some pace of game rules and the 6 mound visits per game. What they'd like, the average baseball game last year was 3 hours and 5 minutes, and Paul Manfred would like that to be cut by 10 minutes to 2 hours and 55 minutes. I guess that's significant in some way. I mean, if you grow up watching baseball, you're used to 3-hour games. Mm-hmm. Back in the day, they would get through these games a little quicker. I'm one of those guys that thinks there needs to be something punitive in order to make a rule work. And if all you're doing is warning guys, and then those guys get fined, I mean, I don't know how punitive that is. I mean, if it's pace of game that you're trying to change, shouldn't there be an in-game punishment? Like that's a ball.
Yeah, and this whole 6 visits to the mound, it's very vague in my mind. I mean, can an umpire just look at a catcher and go, "Give me the right-hander"? The catcher goes out and goes, "Just give me the right-hander." Can he make the move? And then all of a sudden, it's not a visit to the mound. There's a lot of little things that guys can do from the dugout to be able to go and say, "Hey, look at the umpire and say, yeah, I'm going to make this move. Give me the right-hander, bring this guy off." No, and is that considered a visit to the mound?
I think some of those rules, yeah. I think anytime you're changing a pitcher, it changes. So the whether or not that is handled within the 6 visits, it's anytime a coach visits,
right,
anytime a position player visits, anytime a pitcher leaves the mound to visit a position player, whenever a catcher visits the mound. And I know that for pace of play during the playoffs, I complained about this, is that, let's not get the signs wrong. I'm coming out there. And during the Dodgers Cubs, during the Dodgers Astros series, it was constant.
Right.
I mean, those were long games anyway because they were competitive, but they were made longer because they were just constant.
So you're saying to me that if you're at second base, right, and I'm the shortstop, and we find out that you've actually figured out our signs, and I'm going to have to come out. The catcher's going to have to come out. Well, now I'm the shortstop because I need to know what's going on too. I come out there. So that's a visit. So that's one of the 6?
Yes.
Okay, so it's just not coaches. It's just
it's not no. Obviously, so the coach visits still are, the second time you visit during an inning, you pull.
Right.
You have to pull your pitcher. This is 6 visits, and there's some gray area of what happens. If the catcher comes out and it's visit number 7, that pitcher doesn't have to be pulled. There's not a ball called. There's a warning from the umpire, and that catcher might get fined. That's it.
So is this something they're doing this season, or is it only for spring training?
It's for the season.
It is for the season. Usually they try to run these things through spring training. I think they did the clock here.
Right. They wanted to do the clock, the 20-second clock, and the Players Association was against it. They didn't want that, and part of that, I don't know, was because they thought the clock was a bad thing. It was because we're not going to sign off on that because you bastards didn't sign any free agents during this,
right,
lull. So, neener sort of thing, right? So, the pace of play had to change in some way, and there's just no teeth in it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Joe Torre's talking about, it's going to be fines and it's going to be progressive fines, but it doesn't really change the pace of the game. Right. Truly, when there's nothing punitive happening during the game.
Right. Interesting.
So
I think it's going to be quite interesting how this all goes down.
Yeah. And then the other thing that they changed was the time between innings. So a pitcher can go out and he doesn't get his 8 pitches. It's however many he can throw within the time frame that's allotted. So for a national televised game, I think it's 2 minutes and 5 seconds. And for a nationally televised game, it's 2 minutes and 25 seconds between innings. And for a postseason game, it's 2 minutes and 55 seconds.
And if he takes 2 minutes to 56 seconds, does he throw a flag? And
no, that's just
ball one.
No, that's just it. It's a warning. And so if a pitcher is warned, that there needs to be a pitch delivered, nothing happens.
Next they're not going to tell the catcher that he can throw down to second base, right? Is that the next thing?
No, he gets his name on the board. That's pretty much it. So it's interesting. I don't know that this is going to have a significant effect and an impact on the pace of the game. And for me, and this is a longer discussion for another time, and I think we should bring it up. I am definitely for automated balls and strikes called.
Yeah,
I think that would speed up the game, because then you're not having guys stepping out and looking back and glowering, and the pitcher stepping off the mound and glowering at the umpire. It's like the radar detected it was a strike, and you're not. And Kershaw isn't getting extra. He's not getting pinched. He's not getting an extra 4 inches on either side. Kershaw is either throwing strikes or he's not throwing strikes. And to me, I love that. I love it. And I think that would speed up the pace of the game, because you don't have an umpire stepping back and looking at the dugout.
Do you actually have in your mind? Is there an umpire back there? Because he has to call safe and strike. Safe and out.
Absolutely.
Plays at the plate, right?
Absolutely.
Wow. That would be quite interesting.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind doing it in A ball or B ball and in double A ball to see if that would be an interest. But
so I think I can't remember if it was Showtime or HBO or ESPN, but I think we talked about it. But Eric Burns from Major League Baseball from Network actually was umpiring a game, and they were feeding him, and he was not calling balls and strikes. It was all computerized, automated, radar called. They would just give him the message, and he would call it. And it went flawlessly. I mean, it was just flawless. And so for me, the thing is that if you don't know that it's being called automatically and there's no delay, it's going to speed up the game, because then it takes out that you're blind ump.
Yeah,
you miss, kick your dog,
Yeah.
Because
there were some umpires in the playoff games that were just horrendous. Remember we talked about that.
You've seen guys like Kershaw who feel a little entitled to getting those 4 inches on the black, outside the black, right?
Yeah.
You've seen how he steps off the mound and glares.
Yeah.
Or
like, I deserve that.
Yeah, I deserve that. I'm Clayton Kershaw.
Yeah.
You got to give me that pitch.
Yeah.
And so then there's no vendettas between umpires and that sort of thing. So I know that's sort of the purists would say, "Oh God, you're crazy," but I think we're getting there. All right, so we're moving on. NHL, the Ducks on a 3-game stretch,
and key wins, big ones. The Blackhawks, Minnesota, and then they just beat Las Vegas last night. So
huge win.
But again, it's like we mentioned, last week. Like no time for any dips. Now they got to keep playing this way, and if they can, work their way into being that 8-7 seed. And they're winning going into that, I think they'd be tough to hang in there and be competitive. But again, you got to keep winning and showing yourself that you can beat these teams. And that was in Vegas, and so it was good. It was they're home. I think they're home for just one game. And I think we're actually rooting for Vegas. I think against Calgary here this today or tomorrow.
So the Kings are still on their road trip. They've won 2 of their 3 on the trip.
You put Chicago, right? Or
they beat Chicago. They beat Chicago, and they're playing again tonight. They're down to the Jets 1-0 at the end of the first. It's a big game.
Yeah.
It's a big game. They're rolling on the road. Had that big shutout against the Blackhawks last night, and they won 2 of the 3. So you got to just keep pushing.
You can't get a lull right now. I mean, this is where you got to start. Right. You got to work your way into playing great hockey and going into the playoffs if you're to make it. And again, I don't know if you can look it up, but when is the women NHL? I'm not NHL. Olympic hockey plays Canada for the gold medal.
They play for the gold.
Is that tonight?
Tomorrow night, I think.
Oh, I thought it was tonight. So that's going to be phenomenal to watch too. I think and that's the other thing, Vince. And I don't know if the NHL has talked about this or it's come up, but I really love the bigger rink, and I love it's really fast paced. I understand the NHL is going to want to hit and be a little bit more physical, but I really love the openness of that rink being that big and being able to watch the speed of hockey being played. And is that just because that's you're taking seats out of the arena that's costing money, or why they have a bigger rink and the NHL doesn't adopt that?
Yeah. It's an interesting question. I don't know the answer to it. I think for me, watching the women play on that big rink, it feels like a slower game to me because there's so much. Typically these are women who are not over 6 feet, and certainly not like Hunter Greenway. Or or Jordan Greenway, whatever is the 6'5" kid. He's covering a lot of ground on the ice. The women are under 6 feet, and typically even 5 feet right above that. So it's hard to make up that ground.
Yeah, I understand about the women, but it was just looking more for the men. In the NHL. So
it's interesting. I think it's. The size of the rink is just sort of one of those standard. They've made some changes to icing rules and 2-line passes over the years, and so I don't know if it would speed up the game.
It'd be fun to watch Connor McDavid on that open ice like that.
The teams with less speed would not.
Yeah, they're done.
Yeah,
I mean you'd have to change your whole criteria and strategy on how to draft, but I don't know. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed watching that.
Definitely, passes. Longer passes.
Yeah.
I
thought Granato's doing. Is it Granato?
Tony Granato.
I think he's doing a great job. I mean.
With a bunch of names.
Exactly.
And then guys who
guys that used to play in the NHL. Yeah, exactly. So
like the guy who grew up in Rancho Santa Margarita, John Blum, who's on the team. These are guys who had their time in the NHL, and then he was playing in the KHL. I think I don't know. China, Moscow, wherever the hell he's been playing, So, and the kid from Harvard has been the MVP.
Yeah.
Was it Canato or
his
name is? Sort of like, and then Greenway is one of those kids where you just think, wow, sometimes he flashes of brilliance.
And then he's an idiot
and then sometimes just a rockhead.
You made an idiot move last night. I'm like, what are you doing? He was getting pushed around, and he showed it, and he got a penalty, and they ended up scoring off of it to go from 3-0 to 3-1. And I'm like, what are you doing? And I thought for sure Granato was going to give him a piece of, but he just kind of looked the other way, and he knows he's pissed. But
that body,
he's a big boy.
Yeah, he's big.
He's a man above little kids. There.
I think the rap on Greenway is that his coach at Boston University has said every great player I've known has thought that they were a great player, and this kid sometimes has doubts about his talent and doesn't always show up. And so that's the kind of big body, the first African American in either men's or women's hockey in the Olympics ever, 98 in the 98 year history of the games. And so that's the kind of player that the NHL needs.
Yeah, I hope it's a great game against Canada, the women. So I'm looking forward to that. And then we play the Czechs and the men. So that's
in the quarterfinals.
So I don't know if it's back-to-back days or not. But that's Czechs. They say it's pretty physical, and it's going to be a tough battle.
Yeah.
So
for sure,
Lindsey Vonn goes for her downhill tonight.
Yeah.
So.
the Olympics are always fun to watch, but they're a lot more fun to watch when the USA is winning gold medals. Only 5 gold medals so far, and
Norway has been
we're 17 gold medals behind Norway.
Wow. Yeah,
and it's looking like potentially one of the worst medal showings for the U.S. And
then they're just going to go, we'll wait till summer.
Yeah, exactly.
Norway, wait till summer.
Yeah, wait till summer. Well, we won't see a lot of Norwegians at the summer games in 2 years. So, Pac-12 basketball, but just talking about NC2A basketball in general, the Louisville gets their 2013 title vacated, and that's unrelated to any of the stuff that's sort of being investigated by the FBI now. That was a whole different animal, but that seems like the first gunshot in what looks like a lot of big programs, because Yahoo Sports and other places are reporting that heads are going to roll. Right. Hall of Fame type coaches, legacy type programs, because of this FBI investigation. So,
yeah, I mean, these guys are now, it's under a microscope. And, I was thinking about this today. It's like, so Louisville gets their championship taken away from them. But do they really care? Like, they won. I don't even know who they beat in that game.
I don't remember.
Right, exactly. They don't get it now. They don't.
Michigan. It was Michigan.
Does Michigan get the championship trophy? No, exactly. Like, so they really could care. I mean, that's not a really big deal. The big deal is heads being rolled and your program getting slammed for 4 years or whatever they're going to get nailed for. And again, what's crazy about it is exactly what you just said. It has nothing to do with what Pitino just went through right there. And so, not good for a big successful basketball program, not good for just overall college basketball in itself. And and then we lead into possibly what's happened at USC and what these kids are getting approached on and what they're getting handed to them. And so it's really hard for actual coaches now in NCAA basketball to be able to keep these kids all under one roof and keeping them all straight and narrow. And it's just, and then the coaches are becoming a little bit erratic also in getting stuff.
Well, if Lynn Swan and the investigation that USC funded of their own program is to be believed, Tony Bland, who is involved in the FBI investigation for the money, the violations, and then the fraud and what's going on there. If Lynn Swan and the Free investigation are to be believed, he was a rogue guy just looking to make a buck. But DeAnthony Melton, that whole thing really has torpedoed the Trojans' chances. And so, but USC is not the big fish in this investigation. We're talking about big programs that. This could be a Kansas type of program that's going down. And so I think that this sort of thing that's happening in Louisville is going to be small potatoes. The other shoe is about to fall here. So, the problem for me, and we were talking about the OC Register published last week an interview with Lynn Swan about the state of basketball, whether there was any institutional issues going on that sort of led to the Tony Bland arrest, that led to the DeAnthony Melton, being essentially kept out for the whole year. And, he's saying all the right things as far as USC fans are concerned. But the other thing that I read out of that Register article was just that the Pac-12 in general, their cable deal, that they started their own cable network, has really hamstrung them. Mm-hmm. And so we saw it in football, where these teams were terrible. In the bowl games, and now we're eating our own again in basketball. Arizona's the only one in the top 25, the only Pac-12 team in the top 25, and a team like Oklahoma has the great kid, Trae Young, who, one and done type of kid who was great. They've lost 8 of 10, and they were still in the top 25 up until just this week.
Exactly. And how, if they don't win 2 of their last 3 games, how do you put them in the tournament? I mean, unless they win their tournament, right? But the way they're playing, they have no chance of winning their tournament. I mean, it's bad basketball. And talk about it, it's almost like watching the NBA All-Star game. I mean, the guy throws up threes left and right, and he's not hitting anything. Yeah. And I think he only had 11 points in his last game, and he was
right up for everything. Before that 10-game stretch where they were 2-8, he was averaging 4 turnovers a game. And now he's averaging, in that 10-game stretch, he's averaging close to 7 turnovers a game.
Yeah, it's bad basketball right now.
He's young.
He made Texas. The Texas made it. I mean, they made Texas look really, really good the other day, and now you see teams like Kansas starting to turn their program. They were struggling there. I think they lost 3 times already in Kansas, and now that program's starting to turn around. But this is where the great coaches start to weed their teams going into the tournament, to be contenders. But one of the things I read in this thing that caught my eye with Lynn Swann was, he asked, what is your thoughts about the future of this year, and where do you see them going? And he said, well, Andy said that it would be very successful if we were to get to the tournament. And he kind of mentioned, like, I don't want to go to the tournament. I want this thing to kind of, the season's done, and just kind of get done with this whole thing and clear it all out and make sure that, going into next year. So I ask you, is Andy's job up for change there?
I think Lynn Swann answers to, the donors, the big boosters. And this was supposed to be a year. I think Lynn Swann does acknowledge that there were things that were distractions. Obviously, the FBI investigation, it couldn't have come at a worse time, with the Tony Bland thing, and then putting the whole program, not just the whole program, but the whole school and the whole athletic department under the microscope. It came at a time that was very distracting for USC, with one of their best player, DeAnthony Melton, certainly their best defensive player, who was unable to play because the NCAA wasn't going to rule on it, and they just couldn't risk, vacating games and getting put on sanctions. So I think they were probably being overly protective. But if there's it looks like he's going to be cleared. Does he come back? Does he, leave for the NBA draft? I don't know. I think what I've heard Lynn say is that he doesn't want to be sitting around on selection Sunday and find out that USC has to play their way in again.
Right. Like last year, right? It was last year, right?
Yeah. And a couple of years in the last few. He wants them to win their games now and be secured. This is a team that's 1 win away from a 20-win season. If they can go into the Rockies and beat Colorado and beat Utah on the road, that's 2 big wins. That puts them at 21. And they come back and play UCLA, and then it's tournament time, Pac-12 tournament time. I think Lynn wants to see this team. You say, look, the distractions, screw that. We need to win games, and we need to secure our place and not leave it up to the committee, putting us in as the last 4 in.
So going back to the Pac-12 basketball, is the league that equal, other than Arizona being a little bit ahead of schedule, ahead of them, but is the league that competitive to where, an Oregon, a UCLA, an Arizona, I don't even know, can they make a run in the tournament? Like, are they good? Are they good enough to make a run in the tournament, or am I hearing what you're saying is that it's a weak league because of what you saw in football? They went 1-8 or something.
It's hard to tell. It's really hard to tell.
Right.
I mean, there was a time Arizona was preseason
right
number one. I mean, people,
and then ASU became and then they've faltered.
They faltered, but that's a dangerous team. I mean, I don't think anybody wants to see
I think Oregon's
State.
a dangerous team also. I think
they can be. USC. Other than that last second miracle shot by Stanford,
right?
They're sitting on 20 wins right now, and they're in a better position than they were. USC is dangerous. They now with boat right out, they're a little less dangerous, but it's like next man up. You've got to, and a lot of teams are seeing that. UCLA lost Lonzo Ball,
right?
Washington lost Markelle Fultz, and they couldn't survive that. They were terrible last year, and they're just not very good this year either. The Arizona lost Markkanen. The Ducks lost a very good player in the draft as well. So, there's a lot of good talent, but I'm just not seeing a lot of great coaching, right? And again, some of it is just there's parity. It's parity.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Arizona State was beating some teams, and they, coming into the Pac-12 season, and then they lost a couple of games, and then Arizona looked like they were the big guys, and then so and then UCLA now all of a sudden is looking like they found their feet.
Yeah.
So these last 3 games are going to be.
Yeah, I just you look at the SEC in football, right? And you have Alabama and you have Auburn and you might have an LSU or whatever, but everybody below that is just mediocre at best. They can the rest of the field will just beat up with each other, and what I'm seeing here is the last place team in the Pac-12 could, in Oregon State or somebody, or they can beat in Arizona sometimes here and there. Like is the talent that's in the Pac-12 so the parity's so strong that, hey, watch out, these guys could be sleepers to get to the 8,
sure, or
make a run at 16 and stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think like last year we just talked about some of those guys of Markelle Fultz Ball,
right?
Kyle Kuzma with Utah. There's a lot of good talent around. Lauri Markkanen at Arizona. There's a lot of good talent. There's a lot of good talent here, and I don't think. I think unfortunately right now with the strength of schedule and the RPI, the only 2 teams that are in the top 50 are Arizona and USC out of the Pac-12.
Right.
But right now USC is looking like a bubble team.
Right. Yeah.
So if they're a bubble team, and all these other Arizona State is a bubble team, but they don't have quite the RPI that the Trojans do, and Arizona's at the top of the heap, but UCLA is competitive. But
again, if you get a UCLA or an USC or an Oregon or ASU to become a 12 seed, I guarantee you those coaches on the other side are scared
absolutely.
Because I think they can be really competitive in the tournament. And because I think the parity is so good, I think in the Pac-12 that it's almost like playing tournament games almost every week. So
I'll tell you, John, the one thing that I've seen,
and it's going to be interesting to see how the Pac-12 tournament turns out.
Well, the thing that I've seen from the Pac-12 is that there has been more zone played this year than the Trojans played it almost exclusively. They're a different team without Boatwright, with his length.
Right.
But he was having an off season offensively. Had some injuries before. Now he's out with the knee injury. But he's long and he and got quite a wingspan and so Enfield had a zone that was really slowing people down. And I think every team now, if you watch any Pac-12, they're playing a lot of zone. And I think that gives teams fits. I think that can give teams fits in the tournament. And so I like the idea of the Pac-12 in the tournament. It's just a matter of getting them there.
Right, exactly.
It's the selection committee that is going to, when you look at USC, who's played really well, they lost Boatwright, and that doesn't help them as far as the selection is concerned. They're on the bubble. And I think they deserve better than that. Arizona State on the bubble, and I think they deserve better than that. So UCLA on the bubble, and depending on how their season ends up, they could be deserving. But as of right now, the only team that's guaranteed is Arizona. Only team that's guaranteed right now is Arizona.
Or maybe the team that loses or beats Arizona maybe in the finals of the Pac-12 tournament. That's probably the only thing that they got going for them.
Yeah, maybe. All right. Well, I think we got just one. We'll just do a little recap on the LA Open and Bubba Watson. He's won 3 of the last 5.
Yeah, it's even number years actually for Bubba. He just got his 10th victory. So now it's the talk is he's won 2 Masters, and he's got 10 victories. Does that include him into the Hall of Fame down the road? Emotional guy. He thought many times about possibly retiring. He's had long talks with his wife about he owns a candy store, he owns a car dealership, and he owns a baseball team, minor league baseball team. So Bubba is an emotional guy to where it's not going good. He has no problem wiping his hands. He's made a lot of money. He's fine, but he got a little ill, but he came out of that, and the team behind him actually, Teddy's been with him for quite a while now, and he's got a great caddy there. But I think that might just rejuvenated him to it might be a guy that might make the Ryder Cup team now, So I was happy for him.
It felt like people were sort of throwing dirt on Bubba, Well,
he's not the most personal guy.
Well,
he doesn't.
Prickly,
So he's, he can come across as being not a guy that nobody, and he doesn't care. That's the other thing is like, you don't like me, I got no problem with that. He's pretty strong on social media, and he's got a lot of fan base. But again, it's just, it was good for him. I think it was good for golf.
Right.
Bubba always playing well is, people like to see him hit at the ball 315 yards. He's never had a lesson. I mean, he's got his own swing. I think changing back to the Titleist golf ball was gigantic for him. He signed a thing with Volvic to play a colored golf ball the last 2 years, and it was or maybe last year, and it was disastrous for him. But getting back to,
sort of like Tiger with the Nike clubs.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, Ping's been with him forever from day one, and he went back to Titleist, and he's healthy, and it was good. I guess my picks, other than Leishman, missed the cut. Mickelson was tied for 6th. Justin Thomas tied for 9th. Dustin Johnson tied 16th. My sleeper was Jamie Lovemark. He was up there the first 2 days, and then he ends up T26. But Cantlay, Patrick Cantlay from UCLA, gave it a good run to beat Bubba. So I picked a Trojan over a Bruin there. Sorry about that. And he came tied for 4th.
Wow.
So
help me out with the guys who tied for 2nd. Kevin Na,
local guy from Whittier.
Okay.
So he's been a local guy. He's been on the tour for quite a while. He had struggles about 3 or 4 years ago from pulling the trigger, and that turned out to be a kind of a big issue with guys playing with him, because he'd try to come back and then he'd step away, and he mentally, but he's come over those things. He's always been a solid player, a really good player.
Then Tony Finau.
Tony Finau is a Fijian.
Tahitian. I don't know.
Tahitian, whatever. He's 6'5".
Really?
Absolutely bombs the ball. He was on the big break. He's on one of those Golf Channel big breaks, and has worked his way up and getting his card through the web.com, and bombs it, bombs it. So, the golf course, some of the guys told me, I was up there on Wednesday and Friday, that the greens, it played fast and firm, and the greens almost had a first day feel of a U.S. Open to it. Riviera is a unique golf course. It's probably one of the best ever designed. But there's really only 6 holes probably on there that are really attackable holes. And you've got to birdie the par 5s to be, to help your round out, because other than that, the other holes are just, some of them are just absolute monsters and beasts that will eat you up and spit you out. Yeah. So, when you've got, 8 or 9 iron down and you can attack a pin, you go. But other than that, I mean, some of these par 3s are, one's 234. You've got 18s, 475-yard par 4 up a hill. I mean, some of them are just really outright beasts, and you've got to be able to manage your golf ball there and be able to attack. And when not, 20 feet to 30 feet and 2-putting for par it's really good. Just go on. So, and it showed. Only 10 under par, I think, won the golf tournament. And so overall, it was a gorgeous week. Very little, not that much wind. The crowds were out. That's for sure.
That was good.
So Tiger missed the cut, so that didn't help.
And that again, a quick thought on Tiger's golf game. I mean, should fans be worried of him making?
I don't think they should be worried. I think they should they should understand that he's not the player he used to be, and I'm seeing golf swings that. If you go back and see him in 2000 and 2002 and and how much he generated so much club head speed with his body, and because of the back surgeries, you can see he kind of wishes it at times through the golf. And what's happened is, a guy that has actually had a bad back, and he knows at impact what like a jolt can be, and I just feel that he's not able to get his right side through the golf ball like his mind's wanting him to, and what he's actually physically feeling and getting out of it. Now, what's positive is he's playing multiple golf tournaments in a row, so so the surgery seems to be working. It's just overall, I question that. I think he just needs to trust that what is going, and he's not getting that out of his driver. And when he doesn't hit his driver well, he's not going to score his golf ball.
Right. He's got to get used to his new body.
He does, and he needs to be able to trust the driver. And I don't know if that is maybe going to a looser shaft, because you've got maybe a shaft that's in there for you to be aggressive with and play powerfully. But overall, when it comes to guiding something out there, it's not doing what you want it to do, which means you miss it way right. So I don't know. I'm in a wait and see type of deal, but it's good. He does move the needle. It's good for golf that he's playing. It's good to see that he's going to play 2 in a row. So, let's just kind of see how it goes. And it was just him and Steve Stricker were just named assistant captains to Jim Furyk for the Ryder Cup.
Okay.
So, he's working his way into being a captain down the road also.
Well, good. Hopefully he can make some cuts here coming down. And
you got it.
So it looks like that's going to wrap it up for this week's edition of the SoCalSportsReport.com podcast. Thanks a lot to John Adams.
Thank you very much.
And hopefully we'll get the captain, John Stellman, back in his seat next week. And until then, check out his article on Trevor Hoffman being elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame. He's got that up on SoCalSportsReport.com, the website. And we'll see you next week.
Peace.